Get ready with me as I tell you my crazy birth story. Okay, so this was my fourth baby. I'm gonna just go into labor naturally and I get to the 39-week mark. And keep in mind, I was measuring smaller, like 3 weeks smaller, and they weren't doing ultrasounds, and I was kind of getting annoyed by this. They offered me an induction, so I'm like, sure, I'll do it for 40 weeks. So I go in for my induction in the morning of my due date, which is cool. I wasn't like too worried because I have had 2 inductions before, but one of them actually ended up turning into a C-section, but I had to be induced because her heart rate was in the 60s, dropping to 60s, and just a whole nother story I'll tell another time. I go in and they decide to start with the Foley ball, which is fine. They check my cervix and I was like a 1.5 or maybe a 2. I don't really remember, but fine. Yeah, I did the Foley ball with the one that I ended up getting a C-section with, and it worked. I was in labor, but I just had other complications. So I'm like, the Foley ball will work. So they put it in, and it was like taking forever for it to come out, which was kind of weird because it worked so good with my second baby. And my baby kept falling off the monitor. They had to come in and redo it like so many times. It was ridiculous. So after about like 3 hours, 4 hours of that, the Foley ball finally came out, and honestly, I was like it got to the point where it felt like it was like stuck or something, so I kept pulling on it a little bit, but not aggressive, just it's supposed to fall out and be able to fall out easily. I tell them, they come and check me, and my cervix is not like fully dilated, and that's supposed to dilate you to a 5 or a 6. So they're like, that's weird. They couldn't even reach the end of my cervix, so they get someone else to do it that has longer fingers, and she can't reach either. And without saying anything to me, they just walk out of the room and they bring in an ultrasound machine. So this is where I'm like, okay, I've never had that happen during labor, so now I'm like kind of freaking out. They put the ultrasound machine on, and I've had so many ultrasounds, I know what I'm looking at. And I immediately see this baby girl's butt down into my left pelvis, and that's not good. So they're scanning a lot, they're not saying anything to me, and I'm like, that's her butt, isn't it? And they're like, well, we're just checking everything. And like when they finally confirm it to me, I start immediately crying because I have really bad birth trauma from my C-section, and it was the last thing I wanted. So they end up getting a specialist coming in that does all that, and she offers me a elective C-section or a EVC, I think. It's where you turn the baby around. So I end up going for the EVC, and like they're telling me that it's probably really gonna hurt, that I should get an epidural to make it go easier, and I don't know, I guess I'm nuts because I said no because I thought somehow if I got an epidural it would lead to a C-section, and I know, like, whatever, C-sections are fine, but for me, I want to avoid them because there's so many risks long term, like with your body, and it's just not, I feel like it's better to just have your baby vaginally. They start the procedure and they have an ultrasound on the whole time to check on the baby. They're monitoring her, and the whole thing lasts like less than 10 minutes, flipping her around, and it was fine. And it worked perfectly good. And I like posted a little about my birth story before, and people were like so mad that I got this done, but I'm like really happy with the outcome of it actually. And it was totally fine. The position she was in was actually like the best scenario for flipping her around, because her butt was in my pelvis and her feet were kind of to the side, and her head was in my right rib. So that made it easier for her to just like flip and pop right in. And I felt like one pop out of my pelvis and then a pop back in when her head like went in. It was crazy. And then they asked to break my water. I was only like 4 centimeters dilated, and I was worried about that, but they pretty much were giving me no choice. Like, we have to break your water because like she could flip back around and then you're gonna end up with a C-section. So I'm like, okay, break the water. She broke the water and put a belly band on my belly so it would hold her down really good. And once she did that. She turned on a very low dose of Pictocin, and she was born very fast after that. I didn't have an epidural. I was having some crazy contractions. They just got worse and worse, but it's like it was going so fast. Every contraction that came, it was like harder and harder. And with my third baby, I had a natural birth, and it was like not the same. Like I didn't feel this, like the urge to push as hard as I did with this one. It's like I couldn't hold in my poop. It was just flying out of me, like, but it was a baby. And it was just crazy. And they check me when I tell them I feel like I need to push, and they tell me I'm a 6. I'm like, are you sure? And then not even 10 minutes later, it might have even been 5 minutes later, like I'm like, oh, I don't care what you say, this baby's coming out, feels like I'm like needing to push, and they're setting everything up, and I don't know, I'm like watching them set things up, and they're not telling me what to do or anything. I guess because it's my 4th, they just assume I'm like gonna do everything, and I'm holding in my urge to push for like 3 major big contractions at this point. And I say to my midwife, I'm like, do I push? And she's like, do whatever you want, honey. Do what you feel, or she said like, do what you feel is right or something like that. I don't really remember. So I did, and she was out in about like 2 big pushes, and I thought her shoulder was stuck because they were like, keep pushing, keep pushing. So I pushed so hard, and like it felt like a giant explosion. Like she just flew out in one push, which is a little TMI. So from the time labor started, I got in there at like 7 a.m. and she was born, I think at like 5 p.m., around 5 p.m. So my third baby's labor was definitely a lot shorter than that, but just all those complications. So if you're like worried about getting an EVC or something like that, this is a positive experience, and I know a lot of people just like are really against them, and some people are saying like it would be better for them to be born breech, but I don't really understand that, because wouldn't the baby just get stuck, or you're pushing way longer? That scares me. I don't know. And now I'm like terrified to have another baby for the same thing to happen. And like a huge thing that annoys me is my midwife was insisting that the baby was breech, like turned breech during my labor, and I don't believe that. I had a feeling that my baby had flipped somewhere between 38 and 39 weeks, because when I went to my 39-week appointment, I just I felt like something was wrong, and she couldn't. I asked my midwife what position she was in, like if she could feel if she was sunny side up, because I've had sunny side up babies, and she checks, and like she's like, I can't really tell. I'm like, how can you not tell? Every other midwife like I've had can tell, and like the place I go, it's like multiple midwives, so they couldn't tell. And I don't know, that kind of like confirmed in my mind what I was thinking, but I guess I never like thought about it enough to think that it would actually happen, because I feel like that's so rare. And she was head down for weeks. She was never breech, and then she somehow flips around. So they were telling me the Foley ball flipped her around, and I got in my comments a little bit ago with my other birth story that that does happen. So if I do have another baby, I guess I won't be doing that. So if you made it this far, thanks for listening to my birth story, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Let me know if you have any questions. Comment down below.